Darkness comes quickly, creating panic and strife. Change comes from the storm. As a mental health professional, the greatest misconception I run into is that the life I lead is perfect, and many of the issues that affect most do not affect me or my family. However, this is nothing further from the truth. I suffer from depression and anxiety and have attempted suicide on 3 separate occasions in my lifetime. I come from a long history of alcoholism and drug addiction. My parents separated when I was 10 years old, and we relocated to Wisconsin, which impacted all of us. I remember just sort of being there, oftentimes feeling like a lost little girl in a dark forest, unable to find my way out. These feelings led me down a dark path, using alcohol and marijuana to self-medicate my feelings of sadness and anger, along with many resentments that had been formed from unresolved issues from my childhood, only to realize that I was holding myself prisoner, stunting my growth mentally, emotionally, as well as spiritually. It was not until the Creator blessed me with my first son, Anthony, that I realized that there was light from the darkness that I had put myself in. The light conquered for some time, however. After a period, the darkness just returned, only to bring another blessing from the Creator, my second son, Benjamin, who brought such joy to us all. Again, this lasted for a while, but the storm returned, but this occasion seemed much worse. The illogical thinking that came along with this episode was so profoundly irrational. I had just ended the abusive relationship with my son's father, had gotten evicted from our apartment and not allowed to return to my mother's home, and felt so hopeless and helpless that I had come up with a resolution to resolve my problems: suicide. I thought, if I killed myself, my kids will grow up blaming themselves, and then they will eventually someday down the road do the same. So in my warped logic, I thought it would be better to kill us all, and then my family can grieve the loss of us all at one time instead of separate tragedies, and that this would minimize the loss. My godmother overheard me say something that caused concern, and she contacted my mother. Unsure how to say goodbye to my mother so that she would not suspect anything, I was brainstorming a plan of action when she conveniently called, and I say conveniently, to invite me and the boys for breakfast. I felt like, wow, things are planning themselves, and that we would be able to say our goodbyes. Night came and went as if I had just blinked, and it was time for breakfast. After breakfast, my mother insisted that the boys go to my aunt's house until I could take her to the emergency room to visit a co-worker who had injured herself. I appeased her, as I thought these were the last moments I would be spending with her. Upon arrival to the ER, I had thought my mother went back to her co-worker's room, and I sat in the waiting area when a nurse came out and called me back. I followed the nurse back to a room, at which point she began to ask me if I had thoughts of harming myself. I immediately denied, and she said, "Well, I will send the doctor in." For what, I thought, angrily pacing back and forth. Waiting for the doctor, my mother whispers to me that I need to be honest with the doctor, otherwise social services will take my boys away from me, and I will never see them again. The thought of never seeing my boys again was so awful. When the doctor came into the room, I immediately broke down and had shared my plan with him, at which point he decided it would be best if I were checked into the hospital so that I could be stabilized. During this hospitalization, I learned a lot about myself and how to better cope with my feelings, and most importantly, realized that I was not alone and was able to establish a strong support system. This included communicating with family and friends what my symptoms were, so that when I behaved in that manner, they could rally by my side to help pull me out of the episode before I spiraled too quickly. I held steadfast for some time with little to no depressive episodes, and in this time I became pregnant again with my third child, a beautiful baby girl who we named Elisabel. With her birth, I realized that these blessings were my motivation to continue living. Do I still struggle with depression? Yes. but I understand that change comes from the storm.